Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome our guests here in the audience as well as online to our monthly speakers series event here at the headquarters of the America First Policy Institute. I'm Chad Wolf. I am the executive director. But before I introduce our special guest, let me take a minute to recognize a few America First patriots here in the audience with us. We have Senator Sidney Hyde-Smith from Mississippi. There we go. We have Congressman Ronnie Jackson from the great state of Texas. We have Bob Unanue, CEO of Goya Foods and board member of the America First Policy Institute. Former Ambassador Carla Sands, who's also our vice chair for the Center of Energy and Environment. And then, of course, General Keith Kellogg, our chair of the Center for American Security. So thank you for being here. Today, we are very honored to have a fighter, a dedicated conservative, and a leader in the America First movement from the newly elected House Majority. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Majority Leader of the U.S. House of Representatives, Steve Scalise. Leader Scalise represents the 1st Congressional District of Louisiana. He was elected to serve in the United States Congress in 2008 after serving in the Louisiana State Legislature during his tenure in Congress. He has served as chairman of the Republican Study Committee, both the House Minority and Majority Whip, and is currently serving as the Majority Leader. And in that role, Leader Scalise is responsible for the day-to-day workings of the House and plays a critical role in setting the House's overall agenda, which we, of course, talk about today. So as we enter the new session of Congress, again, grateful to hear his insights on the new conservative agenda and the priorities that this Congress will tackle. So we're going to jump right into it.
And there the podium goes.
There it is. There it is. Great. Well, we're just going to jump right into it. You've got some limited time, so we've got a lot of questions here for you. Let me start off with the events of last November. Obviously, we had an election. The American people chose a different path. They want to see a different change. They want to see some policies that we're going to reduce inflation. We're going to get energy back on track. We're going to get the border crisis under control. We're going to give parents control over what their children are taught in school. So as you look forward to setting some of the priorities of the House, give us a sense of kind of what you see as maybe some tier 1 priorities, and as you go down to tackle some of the critical issues we're facing.
Yeah, well, the good news is when we approached the election, really about a year ago, we didn't like the direction of the country. I know the America First Policy Institute has been speaking out against the problems in this country, but we did, I think, a lot of what y'all did too. Is I don't think it's good enough to say what you don't like. It's really important, especially as conservatives, to say what we're for, how we will fix problems. Democrats are good at creating problems, especially when they control all 3 levers of government like they have, House, Senate, White House. They created massive crises across the board. And so we wanted to be very vocal on what we would do, the bold conservative ideas that we would run on to say, if the American people give us the House, this is what we'll do with it to fight for the families who have been left behind and who are struggling because of the reckless policies of Joe Biden and what Nancy Pelosi was doing in the House. And so we laid that out in the Commitment to America. And it was a real clear plan to say this is what we're running on. These are very specific things that we will do to get energy security, border security, to confront some of the problems in communities, crime that's out of control. When millions of kids were being shut out of schools, and we were saying, get the kids back in school. The data said it. You had people here in Washington working, colluding with teachers unions to keep kids shut out of school, and it ruined the lives of millions of people. And so we said, parents deserve a Parents' Bill of Rights. We laid that out. On so many other fronts, we talked about what we would do. And the good news is, and I think this is refreshing for Washington, now that we're in the majority just a few weeks, we're already carrying through on those promises. We're bringing bills to the floor this week, last week, on those very issues, and we're meeting with all the committee chairs to have bills developed to bring forward over the next few months to confront the problems that Joe Biden, Speaker Pelosi in the past, by the way, former Speaker Pelosi, how does that sound? We helped fire Nancy Pelosi with Kevin McCarthy as our speaker. So it's been really refreshing to be able to work in the majority on bringing a bold conservative agenda to the floor when that was blocked. Just think about this, and we just had the March for Life. I saw Bob, and thank you for the tour of Goya that you gave me. But Bob was at the March for Life, and we, every year thousands of young people come to Washington. We had brought the Born Alive Act. This was a bill that 80 different times Nancy Pelosi blocked from coming to the floor, a bill that says if a baby's born alive outside the womb, you can't let that baby die and call it abortion. It's murder. And yet 80 times Pelosi blocked the bill. In less than 8 days into our new majority, we passed that bill over to the Senate so that we can finally stand up for not only the unborn, but the born, who Democrats wanted to let die. So those are the kind of things that we're doing to follow through on our commitment.
Yeah, so it's a great point. So the commitment to America is really your blueprint. So how you're going to set the priorities, obviously, for the new Congress. And I should just say, because we're here at AFPI, we put out an America First agenda in April of last year and worked with the leader and the other members of the Republican leadership now to help craft that commitment to America.
There are a lot of similarities if you look at both documents, and I'd encourage you to go look at both documents. There are a lot of things that are focused on not only putting America first, but getting our country back on track and unraveling the mess that is the Biden-Pelosi agenda.
So legislation's one thing, oversight's another. So a lot of, I think, folks in the audience and elsewhere is how do we hold this administration accountable to obviously some of the bad policy decisions that they've made over the past 2 years. So give us a sense of, there's a lot that has been announced thus far by several of your committee chairmen who are doing great work, but from your perspective, what are the two or three big maybe investigations or oversight opportunities that the new majority has?
Yeah, I tell you what, the oversight hearings, we ran on policy and accountability. And I think the accountability side is what scares the White House the most because they've been shielded from any scrutiny for the last 2 years. There have been no hearings, for example, on the origins of COVID. Where did this start? Did the federal taxpayer through NIH, through Dr. Fauci's agencies, have any involvement in funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab? Those are all questions we asked. They refused to bring those kind of hearings forward. We're going to be having hearings on that. We all know about the border crisis. It was a secure border, by the way, Chad, when you were over there. Unfortunately, they've reversed course on so many fronts. And by the way, a lot of the problems you'll see, whether it's the border security problems, the energy security problems our country's facing, just 2.5 years ago, we had strong policies that were working. And when President Biden came in on day one, he took very specific action to undo things that were working to put us into this crisis. He could undo this on his own. He doesn't want to. This is a choice by the White House. It's deliberate when families are paying too much at the grocery store, at the pump, for their home heating costs right now in the winter. These are all self-created prices by Joe Biden, and he could reverse them, but he won't. So we're going to bring forward bills to address it, but we're also going to have hearings. As I talked about during the campaign, we will give Secretary Mayorkas a reserved parking spot. He's going to be at the Capitol so much testifying. He thinks or says that it's not that it's a secure border. I don't know if Kamala Harris has even said that. She clearly hasn't been to the border. It was amazing when the mayor of New York City went to Texas just a few weeks ago. He was riveted by the alarming response he saw, the insecurity at the border. He went back to New York City, and again, the Democrat mayor of New York City said, it's so bad that President Biden needs to put a czar in charge of the border. We pointed out, he actually did. Her name's Kamala Harris. She just hasn't done anything in relation to securing the border. And so let's have more accountability and hearings on that. On so many other fronts, we're going to be bringing in administration officials and asking the kind of questions that most Americans want. Frankly, if you want to help reduce the national debt, I think we should go to pay-per-view for these hearings. They will be so heavily watched because people are hungry for answers, for accountability, and for the kind of oversight and scrutiny that's been needed for a long time that we haven't had for over 2 years.
Well, you brought it up. Let's talk about the border real quick, something that I could talk about for a long time. We've seen over the last 2 years probably the worst crisis that this country's ever experienced when we talk about that illegal immigration, or migration, I should say, coming across that border. 250,000 folks came across that border in the month of December alone. We've had Secretary Mayorkas in front of Congress several times, as you indicated, talking about how the border's secure, there's operational control of the border, nothing to see here. I think most Americans would say that's not what's actually going on. And I hear from a lot of folks just a lot of frustration is what can we do today? Obviously, the administration's here for another 2 years. They're probably not changing policies. What can we do today? What can the new House majority do to get some resemblance of control and order over that border?
Yeah. There's an old saying that sunshine is the best disinfectant. And again, this administration has operated for 2 years under a veil of secrecy, no transparency on any front. When we've asked basic questions, how many people have come into our country illegally that they know of? Where have they gone? You hear about Texas, or you only hear about a busload. The governor of Texas or the governor of Florida sends a busload out to the Hamptons. My God, it was like stop the world, and this is a scandal. And all of a sudden, liberals cared about the border because it was coming to their town. Well, guess what? It's been coming to every town in America for 2 years now. It's millions. We've estimated just on the low end, if you take the conservative number, more people have come into our country illegally in the last year than the entire state of New Mexico. The entire state of New Mexico, more people have come in illegally. And where you really drive it home, and I think this is a point we need to bring up more and more, Chad, and this is something that we're going to be talking about in hearings, especially with Oversight. Think of all the young people who are dying right now because of drug overdoses, fentanyl. The drug cartels of Mexico have been given operational control of our southern border by President Biden. It's disgraceful. The press doesn't want to talk about it, but it's a fact. In every community, you see deaths of young people. And so I ask coroners. In fact, one of my guests at the State of the Union next week is going to be the coroner of Jefferson Parish, a parish of 450,000 people, because he shared with me horror stories. He's the one who has to meet with the families when they find out that their 17-year-old high school kid just died because he thought he was maybe taking a Xanax pill, and it was laced with fentanyl that came across our open southern border, and he just never woke up. It happens every day. In fact, 300 times a day in America, we lose young people to these drug overdoses because of the open border. 300 young people a day are dying. If a plane fell out of the sky every single day, it wouldn't be the third day before we shut everything down and said, we better figure this out before we let another plane take off, because we're not going to tolerate that many deaths. Yet every day under President Biden, 300 young people have died. Yesterday, today, it's going to happen again tomorrow, and the White House won't do a thing about it. It's a national disgrace. It's a national scandal. We need to get the sunlight there to show these facts, bring these parents into hearings so that Mayorkas has to be sitting next to a parent of somebody who died of fentanyl because he is allowing the border to be open. The blood is on his hands, and if they won't do anything about it, we're going to shame them into having to face and confront this problem.
Such a good point. I think the first oversight hearing by the House Judiciary Committee is tomorrow, so that process starts. Let's switch topics here a little bit. Last week, you announced that the House would be voting on ending COVID-19 public health emergency as well as the national emergency. Obviously, this administration has sort of weaponized both of those to push a very radical policy agenda, I think most would say. White House changed tune a little bit, has announced that they will end both of those, but not until May the 11th, I believe. Obviously, that's probably something that probably wouldn't have occurred had the House not taken some action. Give us your thoughts on, where do we go from here? I assume you're still going to vote on those pieces of legislation, still kind of move that forward, but what are the next steps?
Yeah, and by the way, if you wonder if majorities matter, again, we're just a few weeks into this majority, and when my office announced last week that we were going to be bringing bills to the floor this week to end the public health and the COVID emergency, it wasn't days later that the Biden White House finally said, oh my God, this is going to be a problem, not because they wanted to, because there were a number of Democrats who were calling the White House saying, we're going to have a hard time voting against this bill. This is now a bill on the floor that Pelosi had shielded them from, just like Born Alive. These bills were bills that you never saw on the House floor, so they never had to talk about it. Well, now not only did they have to talk about it, they had to decide, do you vote yes or no to end the pandemic, when most states have ended it. Yeah. Most states aren't hiding behind this. They're letting people get back to their lives, letting businesses get back and running, letting kids go back to school where they can learn again in person, and yet Joe Biden has been hiding behind these orders, not to deal with COVID, to spend billions of dollars a month on things that have nothing to do with COVID because they can hide under those emergency orders. So when we said we're voting on it, then all of a sudden the White House scrambled and said, okay, we'll end it, but not, as you pointed out, until May 11th. Well, Mr. President, we don't need to wait till May 11th, and in fact, it's hurting our country every day we don't end this emergency. our legislation that we're bringing to the floor tomorrow and Thursday will end the pandemic immediately. So let's do it today and tomorrow. I'm sorry. Today we'll vote on one, tomorrow we'll vote on the other. Let's end this. The president should support it. Every Democrat should vote for it as well. The good news is you get to watch on C-SPAN to see how your member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, votes. And then once it passes, call your senators. This is something we're going to engage the American people to do. We're passing good bills already over to the Senate. There's a lot more coming. And I know we'll talk about those: border security, energy security, Parents' Bill of Rights. Let the Senate hear from you. If you've got 2 senators that are for it, great, thank them, like Senator Hyde-Smith. If your senators are not saying a word right now, it means they're probably scared to death and don't want to hear from you because they want to shield this president. Don't let them off the hook. Call your senators today and tell them you need a vote for these bills to get our country back on track.
Yeah. Those are great points. Let's talk about debt ceiling here for a little bit. Obviously, it's a priority. I know it's something that you're working to really galvanize the conference around. Not going to ask you to give away the farm here a little bit, but talk a little bit about the strategy that the conference is going to look at least in the House, over the next several months as we sort of tackle this. It's a tough issue. It's a tough issue because I'm not sure that most Americans probably outside D.C. really understand the issue. So how do you talk to everyday Americans about it?
I think it's important that we start talking about this problem now, because the debt ceiling is really a symptom of Washington's spending problem. And I think Americans can understand this if we talk about it in English and not in kind of bureaucratic Washington speak. What the debt ceiling is, it's like your credit card. Families have credit cards. Every credit card, you've got your monthly payment, and surely you make your monthly payment, but you also have a cap, a maximum amount that you're allowed to charge on your card. Now, you may want to pay off your balance every month. Some people are able to do that. Some people have a balance because they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford to pay it all off, but they also know when you max out your credit card, when you hit the limit, if you go to the store and try to buy something else, it gets rejected because you've maxed it out. That is what happens when the debt ceiling gets hit. So we're over $31 trillion in debt. There is a maximum that this federal government can borrow unless Congress raises it. What President Biden has said irresponsibly is just give him more money to spend. Don't ask any questions. Does anybody think that's responsible or tenable? Would any family in America who's about to max out their card, or maybe they gave their card to their kid who maxed it out, if your kid comes and says, hey, give me another $2,000 so I can go max that out too, you'd say, hold on a second. Now, I'm going to pay the card minimum balance off, but you and I are going to have a conversation about how we got into this problem, and more importantly, how we stop facing this problem again and again. We've got to get control over spending. Washington needs to live within its means like families do. If the credit card gets maxed out, why is it that President Biden's first response is, hey, now the debt of the nation's going to be at risk, or Social Security might be at risk? President Biden is threatening Social Security. He's threatening the solvency of America's debt payments. That's irresponsible. $1 is coming in. Even if we hit the debt ceiling, $1 is still coming in. The problem is Washington's spending $1.29. That's the spending problem in Washington. We're still taking in money, but for every dollar we take in, Washington is spending $1.29. That's a problem. And if we don't confront it when we're maxing out the credit card, for God's sake, when are we going to confront it? This is the time to have an adult conversation. It's not the midnight hour. Treasury said we've got until June with extraordinary measures before we actually truly max out the card. Let's spend the next few months across this country having an honest conversation, just like families do with their credit card bill getting maxed out. Joe Biden, for the last 2 years, went on a radical spending spree to max out this card. Now, he's going to say it's our responsibility to pay it off. Does anybody think if they max out their card, it's somebody else's responsibility? No, but we're here to help. We want to make sure that the nation doesn't default. We absolutely want to make sure that Biden doesn't risk Social Security. If for whatever reason he thinks out of that first dollar that comes in, he doesn't want to pay Social Security, guess what, Mr. President? We do. We think that's a priority. If you don't, that's going to be a conversation we're going to have separately. But at the same time, we need to confront Washington's spending problem. Joe Biden spent 2 years going on the most radical spending spree our nation has ever seen in history. This forces that conversation. Let's have it. I think America is ready to have this too.
Well, several folks have talked about, the administration talks about a clean debt ceiling increase. But I know others, probably in the conference and elsewhere, are saying, okay, if we do raise the debt ceiling, then we do that with also maybe some structural reforms to go along with that. Any thoughts on that piece?
In a clean debt ceiling, again, let's translate this into English. That's President Biden's way of saying that he just wants us to give him $1 trillion, $2 trillion more to go spend and don't ask any questions. I'm sorry, that's not responsible. That is radical. And so why don't we make sure that we're living within our means? Does the president not think there's any waste in Washington? My God, we will give him a long laundry list. Just look at all the COVID spending. There's hundreds of billions of dollars in COVID spending that, for example, went to people that don't exist. They don't even verify Social Security numbers. So there's reports of people in foreign countries getting stimulus checks in the tune of tens of billions of dollars. This is real money. And Biden doesn't want to cut any of that. He doesn't think it's worth spending a little bit of time to see if we can save the taxpayer some of that wasteful spending. He just wants more money to spend. No way is that a responsible conversation. I don't think anybody in America would allow their kids to go rack up another credit card's debt. They would have that conversation about how to save real money that's wasted and start living within our means.
Good. Those are great points. You mentioned it earlier about the Senate, obviously the House and the Senate working together. We have Senator Hyde-Smith here. What majority of Republicans in the House, it's not the case in the Senate, what realistically can be done? Is it just passing a number of bills where they perhaps go to die in the Senate, or is there a more creative strategy to get some action across the finish line?
Yeah, and this is where I touched on it earlier, where the American people have to get involved, because our Republican senators are going to be given a lot of bills that solve real problems. American First Policy Institute's laid out what the problems are and the solutions. So did we. We talk about fixing these problems. We're going to pass bills to lower your energy costs. If you want those energy costs lowered, guess what? Just because the House passed the bill doesn't fix the problem. The Senate has to take that bill up. It's going to take 60 votes for most of those bills to pass. The good news is there are a lot of Democrats that are in cycle, that are on the ballot next year, who are going to be asking for your vote. And so before they ask for your vote, you should have a little scorecard and say, how did you vote to lower my costs at the grocery store, to lower my costs when I go to fill up my car? Everybody wants to talk about EVs. We might have 10% of the cars on the road that are EVs. That means 90% of them use fossil fuels, and they want to shut down fossil fuels in America. And oh, by the way, if you're plugging in your electric car, I checked, you're not plugging it into a tree. There's no solar panels on the roof of the car. You're plugging it into a socket that usually uses something like natural gas, some form of fossil fuels. Open up American energy. We're going to give senators that opportunity to send those bills to the president to address these problems. You're concerned about the border. You want to stop the 100,000 deaths of young people every year from fentanyl and other overdoses. There will be a bill to solve that. How will senators vote on it? And I think for the Republican senators, they'll finally have an opportunity to bring good bills up to Chuck Schumer and say, we're going to have a vote. 60, any other 10, 11 senators want to join us. They're going to have that opportunity. So there will be a few, just a narrow few, that'll only take 51 votes in the Senate. And again, there's a few senators that are saying all the right things on the Democrat side. The difference is it's much less important what you say, it's more important what you do. We're going to give you a vote to back your words up with action. A yes vote means you're with us on American energy and securing the border. A no vote means you're not. It's a binary choice, and we're going to give them that opportunity.
Well, thanks for that. Obviously, we have a number of folks here in the audience from the D.C. area, but we also have a lot of folks watching us online outside of D.C. So as they look at whether it's in their school districts or elsewhere, sort of the woke culture that's permeating everywhere, they're afraid to speak their mind. They're afraid to express maybe conservative views. Obviously, you're a public figure, folks taking shots at you and others. But
figuratively sometimes.
What's your recommendation for everyday Americans to combat sort of that council culture, woke policies that they don't agree with? At the same time, they're a little apprehensive about doing that.
Yeah, I think this is one of those pendulums that's hopefully swinging against the woke left, where people are finally saying they're fed up with cancel culture. I mean, do we still live in America? Do you still believe in the First Amendment and the ability for people to speak their mind? And I tell you what, a guy who's become a real hero in this is Elon Musk. And I know I've spoken with him, many others have spoken with him recently. And when he bought Twitter, it was really to try to reinstate free speech. You know, and this idea that the left just wants to shut people down because they don't like their political views. There is no higher measure of insecurity by the left than to try to shut down voices they disagree with. I guess that means they know they can't defeat us in the world of public ideas. They know their ideas are wrong. They're hurting hardworking families. And so their answer is just to try to shut everybody up who's actually invoking common sense. We need more common sense and more truth in America. And if they want to shut it down, I think more people are going to have real problems with that. I know at our level, we're going to be having hearings on this. Yeah. You know, from Jamie Comer to Jim Jordan, Chairman Jim Jordan, and Chairwoman Kathy McMorris Rogers are working on a bill dealing with Section 230. Bills that say if a telecommunications company has liability protections, if they're a conduit of free speech. Well, what happens if they stop becoming a conduit of free speech? Why should they still get those liability protections? They're there if you're the public square. When you stop becoming the public square, you should stop getting that liability protection. You want to embrace free speech? Let's get back to that conversation. So we're going to have a lot of hearings on this, but I think people are fed up with it. I think in the states where they've combated wokeness, ESG, all of this, you know, these small number of companies that are trying to intimidate larger companies into not giving loans to entities that they disagree with. And by the way, they're using federal agencies like the SEC and CFPB. All of that needs real scrutiny. And again, let sunlight be the disinfectant against wokeness and all of this radical cancel culture. It's time it ends.
Yeah, such a great point. We've hit on a number of issues today. There's many more that we could talk about. Obviously, ESG is one. Weaponizing government, FBI reform, it goes on and on. You have a tight schedule. Let me, again, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Help me in thanking Leader Scalise for being here. Outstanding public servant and on the front lines and for that America First movement. So thank you again.
Thanks for what y'all are doing. Stay tuned. It's going to be a fun ride.
Thank you, sir. That was great. That was good.
Need to grab some.
Yes, stand back there.
See you, right? Take care. Say hi to Kath, buddy.
Well, welcome back to the American First Policy Institute. We've just wrapped up our conversation with House Leader Steve Scalise, talking about the future of the America First agenda in Congress, restoring America's energy dominance, all the issues that are really confronting America right now. Joining me right now is one of the great leaders of the America First agenda, the great former Ambassador Carla Sands, Vice Chair of the Center for American Energy and Environment. How are you, Ambassador?
I'm good. I'm so excited to hear what Representative Steve Scalise was telling us about their agenda. What I'd love to see is our new Congress present their budget and do a you show me, I'll show you mine with President Biden and his budget, and let's get a good deal for the American people.
No, exactly. One of the things that I took away from his remarks was that we need the American people out there who are watching this possibly to contact their senators, because that's where all of this great legislation is going to go to die.
We can't let it die, right? So I'll be calling the Pennsylvania senators in whatever state your viewers are in. They need to call their senators as well.
I mean, everything is so important. Obviously, you've been at the forefront of this fight for so long. You know, you also understand the importance of rebuilding America's energy dominance. I know they touched a bit on that today. I mean, it really is one of the top issues facing the American people.
It is, and I think if enough people in America rise up, there's no choice but the Biden administration and this current Senate will have to get on board to regain our American energy independence, because we can see the issues around the world are not getting better. We now have this really hot war in Ukraine, and then we have our energy independence threatened in the United States. Our allies need to buy our energy, and we need more American energy.
Absolutely. Well, I'll let you go, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us. What a great, absolutely. It's been a great afternoon of questions. We had probably about 100 folks here in the audience watching here at the America First Policy Institute's D.C. office. We're also going to try to grab another guest or so before we sign off here today. In fact, ideally, I'd love to get, and I think we're on the way with the chairman of Goya Foods and a board member of the America First Policy Institute, Bob Unawe. Bob, it's great to see you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
for having me.
Absolutely.
Such a great speaker. Leader Scalise is just so incredible, and what a difference a day makes. You know, with this group in charge that puts America first, puts God first. You know, we need to move closer to God, family, work, and bring back those values. You know, we've had an attack on the family, we've had attack on the man, on devaluing life. So, you know, with Brooke Rollins, Linda McMahon, Chad Wolf, all of you all have just done an incredible job in being an influence and supporting, you know, people like Steve Scalise, Speaker McCarthy, and a lot of people that always want to put America first. We got to bring America back to first place.
Yeah, you know, one of the things is the future of the America First agenda that the leader was talking about. What was the biggest takeaway you took from this conversation today?
Well, you know, we need to be together. I think reaching out, a lot of the bills he's talking about bringing, which need to go over to the Senate, we need to bring those people. We got to kind of shame, is what he was saying. You know, talk to your senators and congressmen about these are the values that we represent. The American people generally, for the most part, you know, want an America first. They respect family, God, work. And so if these other candidates are up for re-election, we need to reach out and talk to them about these issues that are so important to us. We need them, the Congress and the Senate, to get in line with America's values. And if they're not representing that, they're not going to last in there. So I think that's very important, what he was saying about reaching out to congressmen and senators that with our, you know, beliefs in America first.
Well, and one of the things I know, and I know you know this so well, the America First agenda is all 70, 80% plus issues, regardless of party. These are not controversial issues. They shouldn't be viewed that way.
No, they're not. And, you know, we're leaning away from God. You know, what's happening in the big cities, the division and destruction. I just watched for the second or third time, I just flew in from Spain, Schindler's List. And when you see the inhumanity, the hatred, the division that Hitler fomented, and hating, you know, the Jews and hating Christians and hating each other, it was so prolific. Well, we haven't learned from that, because in this country, I feel that we are, by race, by gender, we're learning to hate each other. You know, anybody who has a different opinion is a domestic terrorist. We're calling ourselves terrorists. We're dividing ourselves. We're creating this hatred. And if we don't reverse that course, you know, we're going to see incredible destruction. It's not good. We got to love and build, not hate and destroy.
You're absolutely right. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for coming by. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a great event.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, that will wrap it up here from the America First Policy Institute with our great our discussion, our monthly speaker series with Majority Leader Steve Scalise. We will do more of these later in the month. Next month, we've got a great lineup with Black History Month coming, and also more things on the horizon. I'm Mark Lauder, Chief Communications Officer for the America First Policy Institute. Thanks for joining us.